June 1987. The European Parliament adopts the resolution recognizing the Armenian genocide. The resolution, adopted by a vote of 68 for and 60 against, also calls upon the present Turkish government to acknowledge the genocide perpetrated against the Armenian people from 1915 to 1917 by the government of the Young Turks. In the arena of world politics, this resolution hardly caused a murmur, but to Armenians everywhere, it was a turning point in their long, arduous struggle for justice. At the foothills of Mount Ararat, Armenia was the corridor of ancient civilizations and an important trade route which lined the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. In the year 301, Armenia converted to Christianity, establishing therefore, before Rome, the first Christian state. The fate of modern Armenia begins under the oppressive yoke of the Ottomans. The Armenians of eastern Turkey lived in terrible poverty. Mostly peasants, they were burdened with excessive taxation and subjected to plundering by local officials and Kurdish bandits. At the beginning of the 19th century, the reawakening of nationalist ideals fuels an Armenian revolt. There are those who believe the time had come to reclaim their collective rights. From 1895 to 1897, by order of Sultan Abdul Hamid, known as the Red Sultan, hundreds of thousands of Armenians living in the Ottoman Empire are massacred. It is the first official attempt to exterminate the Armenian nation. To this end, Turkey employs its regular army, as well as isolated Kurdish tribes, easily manipulated by a government which stops at nothing to achieve its murderous schemes. (1908). The revolution of the Young Turks overthrows the Sultan's regime, thus giving rise to great hope among the Armenians, who see this as an opportunity for a peaceful future where their rights would be respected. The euphoria is short-lived, however. The new regime wastes no time reneging on its grand promises made to Armenians. The massacres of 30,000 Armenians in Adana in 1909 quickly unmasks the new government. While claiming to be an ally, their real intent is to punish the Armenians for voicing their demands. It is already evident that the so-called Turkish Revolution has changed nothing for the Armenians. The outbreak of the First World War in 1914 provides the Turkish government with the opportunity to settle once and for all the Armenian question. Talat Pasha, Turkish Minister of the Interior, sends the following telegram to his provincial governors. It has been previously communicated that the government, by the order of the Assembly, has decided to exterminate entirely all the Armenians living in Turkey. Those who oppose this order can no longer function as part of the government. Without regard to women, children, and invalids, however tragic may be the means of transportation, an end must be put to their existence. May 15, 1915, Minister of the Interior, Talat. This diabolic plan is put into effect on the night of April 24th, 1915, with the arrest of hundreds of intellectuals, politicians, clergymen, and prominent Armenians. These first victims were soon to be put to death by the most atrocious methods. Thus begins the first genocide of the 20th century, which claims 1.5 million lives. Faced with the horror of these massacres, voices of protest are raised in the parliaments of Europe, but the great powers are at war, and their intervention in favor of the Armenians would be hesitant, and in any case would not go beyond the verbal stage. This map illustrates the extent of the genocide in the eastern provinces of Turkey. In a few months, half of the Armenians of the region perish. The number of victims rises to 600,000. Some manage to flee into the Caucasus. The remainder are deported. Under various pretexts, the government evacuates entire villages, forcing the inhabitants into exile. Escorted by Turkish soldiers and gendarmes, these caravans of death are led to their horrible fate. Two or 3 months later, 500,000 survivors reach the Syrian desert. Their state is indescribable. Exhausted and starved, many have lost their reason. At first, children under 15 were to be spared. Later, the limit was to go down to 7, and then 5. There was to be no Armenian left to remember.
Et puis, un dimanche matin, Gare Champêtre, il a annoncé qu'il faut ramasser tout, tous les Arméniens. Dans 3 jours, il faut quitter leur village. Et que tout le monde, ceux qui sont restés, ils ont rassemblé dimanche matin au milieu des magasins qui passaient de l'eau au milieu. Et puis, 2 heures après, ils étaient tous rassemblés, ils ont mis en route. Avec les compagnons des gendarmes. Pendant 3 semaines presque, ils ont fait marcher dans le même endroit, monter et descendre, monter en haut sur le montagne et descendre au vallée, comme ça, pour les fatiguer, pour qu'ils en meurent le plus tôt possible, quoi. Et puis quand les gens étaient soif, on cherchait de l'eau, il n'y avait pas de l'eau. Il y avait des femmes d'Arabes et de Kurdes qui amènent de l'eau à vendre. Et puis les gendarmes ne laissaient pas. Ils empêchaient à vendre même de l'eau. Au bout de 3 semaines, on a marché. Et puis on arrive à un endroit, une grande chambre. Il n'y avait personne, il y avait juste une maison. On voit que les gendarmes, les Kurdes, les Turcs, les Tchétchènes, tout ça, ils sortent. Alors, ils ont commencé à ramasser les jeunes. Ils ont ramassé les enfants, tout ça, c'est ce qu'ils ont resté encore. Alors, mon frère, il a dit, maman, il est en train de ramasser. Ma mère, il avait 17 ans, il était grande. Alors il ne peut pas cacher. Ils ont venu ramasser, il n'était pas tout seul, il avait, je ne sais pas, 50 ans, 60 ans. Ils ont amené dans ces maisons-là, une espèce de prison, quoi. Il y avait plein des gendarmes, des Kurdes. Au bout de 2 heures, on entend des fusillades. Ils ont tous... Ils ont tous fusillé. Il n'y a personne.